Hi, I'm Kyoka, the Awkward Black Nomad. I'm a writer, I'm a dog mom, and I travel solo. My channel is for Black travelers, either aspiring or people who ain't nothing new to them, but true to them. Okay. Um, I travel to 10 countries with my dogs, and I talk about that on the channel. I also bring other Black travelers on the channel to discuss their experiences traveling long term or living abroad. Today we have a special guest. I'm going to bring her up. Hi! Let me unmute you. That would be nice. Listen, if you were, if you knew what the beginning of this live was, are you unmuted yet? Can you say so? I think, did I mute you? Now I can't fix it. I did it and now I can't fix it. Maybe, oh, you are unmuted. Okay. Maybe I'll just talk to myself. It'll just be
That'll work too.
right. This is a ghetto beginning. That's okay
Oh, it's
though.
all good. It's all
Right.
good.
It's a
It's
little
all
ghetto
good.
over here on this channel. I am not a techie person. I went to school for writing. Okay. I always like to tell people that means sometimes I can barely speak, but I can write. Okay.
There you go. Got skills.
Dr. Linda, can you tell the people who you are if anyone watching this is unfamiliar?
Sure. So, hi everybody. My name is Linda Enoh. I am a wife. I am a mom of four kids under the age of 11. So, they are 10, 9, and the twins are 7. So, two boys, two girls. And we live in Houston, Texas. I love Texas. I've been here for 20 years. And yeah, but we are planning to move. So we'll talk more about that on this channel. So,
Perfect.
yeah,
Perfect. And she is also a doctor. I don't think she said that. I don't think she said that, but
I did.
yeah, we give credit where it's due. Okay, she is a doctor.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, long, many years of study, hard work. Yes.
If you during this live, if you have any questions for Dr. Linda, please put a Q in front of your question and I'll get to it as we go along. Hi Angela. Hi. Hi, another doctor, Cheryl.
Hey, hey. Who knows what I went through?
Xavier. This is my sister Xavier. Everybody in the chat say hi to my sister. Hi
Yay.
Eileen.
Hi,
Hello.
Eileen.
Black folk, we speak when we come into the room, so don't just be watching us and not say anything. Drop down in the comment section. Tell us hi. Again, if you have a question for Dr. Linda, drop a Q in front of your question and put it in the chat. So
Yes.
you mentioned that you've been in Texas for 20 years. Um,
Mhm.
the people watching, we do hear a little bit of an accent. Could you please share with us where you're originally from?
Yes, people can never guess where I'm from. A lot of people say, "Are you from the Caribbean?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not from the Caribbean. I am originally from the Congo, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, but I've never been there. I was born and raised in Morocco, but I'm not Moroccan."
Ooh.
And yeah, and so French is my first language. We speak French at home. And before I came to the US, Spanish was my second. But because I didn't practice it that much, English became my second. And I think now, depending on the topic I'm talking about, sometimes English is my first or French is my first. So depending on the topic.
But you also, did you study in France?
I
Yeah.
went to a French school. So yeah, so all my childhood, all my schooling was at a French school. So elementary all the way to high school, graduated high school, and then I went to all my schooling was in French until
Mm.
I came here for my master's and everything had to switch to English.
It's the good old American way. Now, when you came to the US, was Texas the first place or was it
Yes,
bounce around?
I ended up in Lubbock, Texas. I went to Tech. I went to Texas Tech, and so I'm a proud Red Raider. And then I went to A&M to Texas A&M, and so I'm also an Aggie, and I love that. And yeah, so I ended up in Lubbock, Texas.
I love that. So, okay, well then my next question would be how did you or maybe why? Why did you start the Tokende Travel channel? Because,
Mm,
you know, and could you
yeah,
also tell me like the premise around that channel?
absolutely. So Tokende Travel, first of all, Tokende means let's go in Lingala, which is one of the languages that we speak in the Congo. I'm not fluent in it, but I just know a few words. But Tokende means let's go. So the whole thing,
More than
Tokende
what
Travel, it's Tokende Travel. So let's go travel. And so I started it back in 20, maybe 2006. I don't remember. Sorry, 2000. I don't remember, but like many, many years ago, 2007 maybe. And back then, I didn't really know anything about YouTube monetization or anything like that. I really wanted to have a space where I could share what I was doing when I was traveling with my toddlers. So I would pack, for example, a carry-on for me and my two toddlers, and we'll just travel like when I would go to conferences for work and things like that. And so I would just put it on the channel, just like the snacks that I would pack for on the plane, and I would just put it there. So those videos I think are still on the channel, and so that's why I started the channel, just to share the things that I was doing. And 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I let go of the channel. I wasn't posting anything, and now when we were considering moving, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was like, man, I just want to talk about moving and going to Africa and all of that. And she's like, just put it on YouTube. Like, she kind of dared me to do it. And so that's why I was like, okay, let me just share it on YouTube, just about talking about it. Like, the words were here, the feelings were here, and I had to let it out. And so that's why it was a rebirth of Tokende Travel, where now it's more about talking about the process that we're going through as a family to get ready for a move.
Yes, yes. I love it. And I'm always telling people like, even if you feel like nobody cares what you have to say, you have a voice. Like you have a voice, right? You have a story, you have a
Absolutely.
perspective. Go ahead, get on YouTube. Go ahead, get on YouTube.
Absolutely.
Hi
Yes.
everybody, welcome into the room. Hey
Hey,
y'all.
yeah.
Yvonne. Yvonne is my unofficial official co-host on the show. So expect good questions.
Ooh.
Hi everybody. Hi Jace.
What's
Hi.
up, Jess?
Angela says that's awesome. I so admire polygons. Yes. We love
Yes,
Hi
yes.
Diane. Yes, so obviously you're well traveled. You've been to a lot of different places. Um and you've been in the US for 20 years now. So what
Mhm.
does what does home mean to you and how has that sort of shaped through your traveling?
Oh, this is such a good question. Um, there's a meme out there that says it's like the guy sweating and he has to push different buttons. Like, one button is about this, the one button is about this. I'll send it to you, but it's like it depends on who's asking.
Mm,
Sometimes I say home is Africa in general as a continent. Sometimes I say it's the Congo. Sometimes I say it's Morocco. And sometimes I say it's Texas. Like, if I'm in New York and they're like, hey, where's home? Or when are you going home? Or I say it's Texas. And so when my parents were still in Morocco, they're not there anymore. They're here in the US. For the longest time, Morocco was home because my parents were there. Um, but in general terms, home is either the Congo or Morocco. Yes, that's how I see it.
I love that. I love because I think home also is something that is kind of a changing thing, and I've kind of adapted to saying home is wherever I'm at.
Oh,
Like
I love that.
wherever I
Yes,
am,
yes.
wherever my dogs are, is home.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. That's true. Like, now with kids, I say Houston is home too, because that's where the kids were born. So I'm like, yeah, Houston is home too.
Mm. So when you first came to the U.S., did you? I guess this is a two-pronged question. Lord, everybody, Frank is saying hi. I don't know if you guys can hear him in the background. He just wants to let everybody know that he's here.
Hey,
Um,
Frank.
hey Frank. Um, so yes, so when you first came to the US, did you have an idea of what the American dream is? And do you think like now that you've been here for a while, has that changed anything for you?
Good question. I think just like for most people, it's what you see on TV.
Mm,
So it's the TV shows. It's a lot of the TV shows we get them in Spanish because in the north of Morocco we get Spanish television. So a lot of the American shows, I don't know the names in English, but I know the names in Spanish. Is like the Fresh Prince of Bel Air, for example, is like the opening and all of that. We learn it in Spanish, and so it's like okay, we see life in the U.S. through those TV shows. What's that show with Steve Urkel? Like, what's the name?
Family Matters.
Family Matters. There you go. So we used to watch those. We used to watch a lot of the Cosby Show, of course. And so that was the image of the US. Like it was through television. A
Mm,
lot of it was through television. And then my eldest brother came here for school. I think it was maybe 5 or 6 years before me. And so when he came back, he kind of told us about how things were like for him and pictures. And so that also gave us a little glimpse into the American life.
mm, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So, do you feel like now that you're here, has that changed in any way? Like, you get here and you're like, okay, this is what I've seen on TV. Now I'm
Hmm.
amongst the people.
Yes. Yeah. I think there were a lot of things that were different because in good and bad way. Okay. So I think that yes, what's on TV, a lot of it was true. But at the same time, I came here as a student. So I didn't experience the quote unquote American dream as a student because I was a broke student, right? I was like, just living like any other student, right? And so it's not like I didn't even have a car
Mm,
for, I think, the first 3 years or so because the concept of having a car is very foreign for international students. It's like nobody has a car like until you're like married or with a family or something like that. So it's a very American thing to have a car. And so once I went through, graduated my master's and then my PhD and everything, now I went into the regular adult life. And that's where I'm like, okay, check this box. Okay, you graduate, check. Okay. You meet your future husband, check. You get a job, check. You pay bills, check. You get the house. So I think that I did check all the boxes. And at some point, you feel like you're in a bubble, and you're like, okay, the bubble is about to burst now. It's
mm.
like, okay, everything's good, but it's like things are growing, 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 and you get more and more immersed. As you get more and more immersed in American culture, the more you get not trapped, but the more you see like,
That's the
man.
word. That's it right there. You get
That's the word. So yeah, like as foreigners, one of the advantages that you have is that you don't have student loan debt in general. You don't have credit card debt. Um, but I fell in the trap because I had to buy a laptop, but I didn't have the understanding of credit cards and all of that, so I fell in the trap. And then I was like, man, I'm in this thing. Like, is it things that suck you in from left and right, and then you're like, you know what? I think I want something different.
but you know what
But
that
there's obviously a lot of pros, obviously, but there's also a lot of things that you're like, I think this is not sustainable.
mm, but that's a good segue into my next question. So, when did you and your husband come to terms with the idea of moving back to Africa?
Hmm. At different times,
Mm,
because when we were still dating, I think I had been in the US for one, two, three, four, eight, 4 or 5 years when we started dating. And I had no intentions on going anywhere. I was still a student, and I was like, this life is great. I love it here. Everything's great. And when we met, because he grew up in Cameroon, he was born here, but he grew up in Cameroon. But he was having those conversations about eventually I would want to go back to Cameroon, and I was like, yeah, 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 whatever. I wasn't trying to to hear that. And then as years went by, I knew that I wanted to go back at some point, but I didn't know exactly which country. And then as we got married and all of that, then we started talking more seriously about when we would be able to do that. But there was never a specific date. Fast forward with 2020, I had already left my job as a college professor, and I was doing everything online with my online business. And I was telling my husband, maybe we can do like an around the world type thing. I didn't think about moving abroad per se. I was more like, let's just pack and go and just do like be nomads. And he was like, yeah, right. Nah, not interested. And I was like, man. And so 2020 happened, and he's like, okay, looks like we can do this thing online. And I was like, all right, can we now seriously talk about this thing? And so that's when we started talking about, okay, what countries, why we would want to go, and all of that. Yeah.
Mhm. So that's an interesting dynamic because when I've heard other couples talk about it, it's always been the woman who's like, "Let's go. Why are we?" And the man is the one who needs convincing. But your husband was already on that time. He was like, "Listen, this
Yeah.
is not my forever home. I already
Yeah,
know."
because yeah, he really really enjoyed growing up in Cameroon, and I think that once we had kids, he realized that his childhood was very different from the childhood of his children, and so that's where he's like, you know what? There's a lot of things that he wishes his kids could experience, and I think that that was a big trigger for him. Like once we had children, to see that okay, there's a lot more kids are kids. Like just play outside and neighbors watch your kids, and there's that sense of community that we don't always see here.
Mm. So what other factors kind of went into that decision of, you know what, life might be better in another country versus the US?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things. Top things would be definitely the weather, like being in warm weather. Although Texas is always warm, right? But being in an
Cold
environment
right
where
now.
it's cold right now, yes, that's right. It's like 32. But yeah, the warmth, family, healthy food, natural food that doesn't have to be labeled as organic. Food is food.
Right.
It's organic naturally, like, right? You don't have to tell them that it's organic. That's the way it is. And also being closer to family. So his family in Cameroon, my best friend live in Cote d'Ivoire, and also being in the Black majority. That's a big deal to me specifically. But and also another one is opportunities for investment. So as Africans, we feel a sense of responsibility to give back, a sense of, you know what, I came here, I've acquired all this knowledge, I can enrich the US even more than they already are, or I can use that knowledge and trying to boost my home as well. So that's what we're thinking about as well.
Okay, so this is not even on my list to ask, but you mentioned this, so now I'm curious. So there's obviously a lot of interest from Black Americans uh, into going back to Africa, any
Mhm.
country, and investing. And a lot of people are saying, well, if Black Americans go and they invest, then they're basically doing the same thing as white colonizers. They're taking over, gentrifying the space. But you're saying actually, it's almost a responsibility of Black people to go back to Africa and invest in the continent and build it up.
Absolutely, because it depends on your reasons to invest. For example, if the Hilton goes and quote unquote invest in Cameroon, all the funds are going back to Hilton USA.
Hmm.
If you're going to invest in Cameroon as an individual or as a group of individuals, I'm hoping that you're thinking about those funds to stay in country. So it depends on your approach. You could invest there and then bring back all your money. But my goal is to invest so that I can hire more people and grow. It's not just for me here in the US, but it's like how I can improve the individuals, their families, their community, and as a whole, the country. And it's not just a one person job, it's multiple people who can do that, from the private industry to the public industry as well. So it's just a drop in the bucket, but it's still a drop.
If we all drop,
That's right.
we all drop, we can make a wave. But
That's right.
do you feel like it's easier to invest or get into the entrepreneur space on the continent of Africa versus over here in the US?
It really depends on the kind of business you want to do.
Mm.
If it's something that it doesn't require a lot of infrastructure, not a lot of high tech, um, then yes, because in a lot of the countries, the infrastructure is lacking. Now, and that's one of the reasons why I believe that with the business that I have, an online business, it's something you can do from anywhere, right? But now it's okay, how can you apply that to a different environment? That'll be the key to do. But in terms of facilities and things, how things are easy to to incorporate a company or things like that, certain countries are easier than others. Like I hear that Rwanda is pretty much, it's very easy to do. You can create a company in a day. In other countries, it's not this is not like that. So ease of business could be easier here, but at the same time, there's something. Sometimes we say that in chaos, there's advantages in chaos. And if you know the right person,
Mm.
you can get the right contract, or you can get the right um, conversation with the right person, just because you know one person. So it's very relational. While here, yes, you said that it's very relational, but there are still some channels that you have to respect, right? Here in the US. But in a lot of African countries and developing countries in general, you don't have to respect those channels. You don't always have channels to, okay, you go here, you go here, you go here. It's just like, okay, if you want to do your open a bank account, for example, sure, you can go through the proper channels and go and stand at the bank and do this and do that. But if you know somebody, he'll be like, oh, I have a friend who works at this bank. Sure, stop by and he'll do it for you like in a day.
Mm.
Here, probably not. But at the same time, it's an advantage that you can have, right?
Fair. That's fair. So, going backwards a little bit, talking about your process for choosing the country. So, obviously, your husband is Cameroonian, so he wants to go back to Cameroon. You mentioned Cote d'Ivoire. What kind of went into that decision as opposed to any of the other countries on the continent?
Oh, great question. So I wanted it to be a French-speaking country. I'm francophone. My husband speaks French as well because Cameroon is bilingual, and I want my kids to be able to speak French. It's very hard to teach, and I tried when they were my firstborn. When he was born, I only spoke to him in French, and then I had to stop and all that. It's very hard. And I also want them to work to be in an environment that is not so much similar to English environment, so an American environment. I want something a little different for them. And so Cote d'Ivoire is, in sub-Saharan Africa, is one of the most developed francophone country. So it's definitely a top choice. It's so Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire, I would say they're both head in head, at the top. And so I wanted also, so good infrastructure, growing economy, stable politically, and with an existing network. So I have my two best friends who live there, and I have some friends there as well. So that's a big advantage to have. So that's why Cote d'Ivoire is, and it's also the country, one of the countries that I visited. So yeah, yeah, that's why.
I love that. If someone asks, are your parents ready to go now for obvious reasons? Are they still in the US?
Oh, that's a great question. My parents are in the US, but they go back and forth between the Congo and the US. So when they're tired of, of the suburban life in America, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so boring. They're like, okay, they go to the Congo. And then when they complain about not having running water, electricity, and all that, they're like, okay, let me come back to America. So they do that. They do that. And the Congo is not at the top of my list, although it's where I'm originally from. But because of uh, mostly because of infrastructure, and now, right now, because of the political situation, definitely is a big reason why. But even when we started thinking about it, because of infrastructure and because life is really, really expensive there, because most goods are imported. So it's very, very expensive to live there.
I mean, infrastructure is a big concern. So, for people watching this who maybe aren't familiar or haven't been anywhere in Africa, could you speak to some of the concerns that people may have about like running water, blackouts, not having access to maybe resources that they're accustomed to in the US?
Absolutely. Yes. And so in Cameroon, I've never been, but that's based on my husband's experience and his family. So, and those are things that you might get used to. That's just how it is, and you'll get used to it. So, for example, in Cameroon, it depends on the city and it depends on your neighborhood as well. You could have like blackout several times a day or multiple times a week, and that's just to be expected. Same thing with the water. Now, again, if you have a borehole in your house and you have water system and all of that, then you might not experience it as much. So that's something that you can definitely do. But water shortage and I mean water cuts and power outages, very common. Same thing in the Congo, wherever you live, except if you live like in like expat only clusters, then sure, okay. But and again, it depends on where you are. Like my parents who live in don't live in the capital, it's it's almost like a 3 day without electricity or 3 day without water. So you get used to it. Like you have to prepare accordingly. That's not something that I'm willing to do. I don't want to do that, right? In Cote d'Ivoire, at least in Abidjan, the economic capital, you don't have that. Again, it depends on the neighborhoods and all of that. But when I went, two times that I went there, never experienced water shortage or power cuts or anything like that. That's something that my husband was very, very surprised about. And most people who go there are like, wow, this is great. No, no power outages and anything like that. So yeah, so that's pretty good. And as well as internet access and speed. So very, very good speed in Cote d'Ivoire. In Cameroon too, according to my husband, you can get some good speed. Like you can have that as well. But in Cote d'Ivoire, it was definitely it's part of the process, which makes life smoother.
Mm.
You don't have to worry about that. So your activity, whether it's work or personal life, can go a lot smoother because these things are there and it's very reliable. Yeah. So my parents, they're not gonna come with us. They're not coming with us. They'll be here. I have siblings here in the U.S. too, so my parents are here in the U.S. As well. Yeah. So it's just my husband and our four kids.
Now, do they think that you are insane for going
Yes.
back? Like,
Yes.
what's the reception been from your parents, from your siblings?
My siblings. So it's funny because not everybody has the same journey. Not everybody has the same needs or wants. So I have three brothers, right? And I think that none of them would want to go back. They have great lives here, and so it's perfectly normal, right? To each its own. My dad is I think he's the one who, I mean, my siblings are like, yeah, go ahead, and it's great and all of that. My dad is the one who's like, wherever you see opportunity, just go. Whether it's Japan, Australia, wherever, just go. He's always been like that because he traveled a lot for work growing up. So he's like, let's just go. My mom was like, when I told her the next day, she's like, I didn't sleep all night. You guys are stressing me out, like that thing. So she's like, no, I can't leave her babies, her grandkids. So yeah,
But
it's
they're going to family. They're going with family. Like they're leaving
I
one
know,
family to go to more family, you know?
I know. It's like because when you've experienced both, you definitely have a comfortable life here in the US,
Mm.
very comfortable. And so that's why a lot of people want to come here for work, for like the system works. There's no chaos in the US, right? But now, if you want to take the risk of living this for opportunities, for other opportunities, and that's where some people are risk takers, and some people are like, you know what, I'm just going to stay in the status quo in the bubble that we talked about earlier, right? And so I think we're willing to take the risk and defy the bubble and get out of the bubble.
How do your friends in Houston feel about moving? So I'm guessing this is your broader community outside of family.
Hmm. They are pretty excited, actually. They are pretty excited. Yes. One of them, one of my friends, is the one who was like, you know what? You need to share that on YouTube, right? And so people our age are mostly like, yeah, we're like right behind you. And even a lot of them are like, you know what? I'm thinking about doing that too. I'm thinking about doing that. And a lot of them are of African descent, or, other even like friends in France, for example, who are like, you know what? I want to leave France and I want to, I think it's not just like a let's leave America type thing, but a lot of it is let's leave the West, um,
Mm.
as a broader movement. And so a lot of my friends who are in France are like, you know what, I'm tired of France and everything. Let me just go somewhere else. And a lot of my friends here in the US are like, okay, I'm tired of the US. Let me just go somewhere else. So it's very well received.
What do you think is motivating that move away from the West? Is it like a need for culture? Is it people missing just their families? Some like a simpler way of life.
Yeah, I think specifically for the US is capitalism. It's just stresses you out and you feel like it's just not worth it. At some point you play the game and you gain from the game, like we're all gaining from the game, but then we're not willing to stay in.
Right.
It's just like it's not worth it. It's not worth it because the
There
machine
is
is not going to stop,
right.
right?
There's no
The
end to the
machine is,
game. You're playing this game for the rest
yeah,
of your life.
for the rest of your life. If not you, the next person's going to come in. They're going to play the game.
Yeah.
So it's on you to find a way out because the machine is just going to keep running, keep running. And so, and the more you stay in it, the deeper you get in it, and the harder it is to come out of it too, because it's comfortable. It's very comfortable, very attractive. I mean, who doesn't want a 2 day delivery for a Prime? I mean, even same day delivery. Who doesn't want that? So
But
it's hard to get out of it, but if you really want to, you
I've
gotta
heard
do
that
it.
too. Like you can, so in the US, even if you make six figures, it never feels like you make enough, right? Whereas like you go to another country and you feel like, oh, I'm rich. Oh, I didn't realize my little bit of salary actually affords me nice things over here,
Yeah. It's
right?
it's crazy. It's crazy. It really makes you feel like because I mean you every all your money goes into bills. All your money.
Yeah, nothing left over.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And you look at your bank account and you're like, man, sometimes you just don't even know where to cut because it's like everything that's there is like needed, quote
Yeah.
unquote. And you're like, nah, no more.
Yeah.
No more
Someone
of
told
that.
me you build a house in Africa is your house. You don't have to pay on it. Like like it's just
Yeah,
it's one
that's it.
price. It's one price. You pay that price and it's
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, if everything fails, quote unquote, I'll go to my parents' house in the Congo and I'll be fine. I don't have to owe anybody anything.
Right.
I might not have running water every day, but that's it.
You're not
I
like
have a
in
house.
debt or you're not stressed out. You just have to
No, no, there's no such thing as a credit card. No such thing. It's crazy. Yeah.
Khadijah is asking, are you still planning to have a home base in the US in case of emergency or instability in country politics?
That's a very good question. Yes, we're planning to rent out our home. We're also in an area that is, we probably wouldn't be able to afford it if we were to come back here. So we're like, we're keeping this house. We're keeping the house if anything fails, or if for some reason we have to come back, we can come back to our house. Yes.
Well,
Yes. So
that's
US will be our base, and we're not planning to like leave and never come back. Like we have family here, so at least once a year we'll come back to see the grandparents and the uncles and aunties and all that.
that's a long flight. It's gonna have to be once a year.
Woo! I tell you, at least, yeah, at least one stop, at least, yeah.
D from Brown Girls Invest 2 says the US promotes a being in a constant state of competition and stress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. I've never been an anxious person my whole life. I'm a very positive and happy person, but man, it just came out of nowhere. It's like worrying about all the things, worry, 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 and feeling like you don't have enough, feeling like something's gonna crash, feeling like you're always constantly doing, and it's like when you're resting, you feel guilty because you're just taking a break. Like you feel like you should be doing something right now,
I could
and
be
that's not
making money.
healthy.
Time is money.
Time is money, right? I could be double doing multitasking things, and while I watch TV, I should be doing this on the side, and that's not a way to live.
Yeah, that's true. Someone told me mood disorders came from the West because there are no depressed and anxious people in Africa.
I tell you, you can find the poorest person, and I mean, I know it sounds like a stereotype, but if you can be happy with little, you've made it.
Mm.
You've made it. Yeah. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take material stuff to be happy. Yes, it can make your life easier, more comfortable, but doesn't mean that it's going to make you happy. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. So speaking of sustaining your move abroad, um,
Yes.
clearly you've talked about okay, you have a house, you're planning to rent the house out. Is there anything else you're doing to financially prepare for that transition?
Yes, a lot of things. The first thing is saving. First thing is saving as much as possible because whether it's Cameroon or Cote d'Ivoire, you'll know in a bit. Uh, there are cash economies. Like you have to pay cash for things. There's no such thing as just first and last month of rent is like 5 months upfront cash. A lot of things are paid cash
Five
upfront, and
months
so
upfront in cash?
oh yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. So this it's not like you're gonna be like putting on the card somewhere. No, no, no. It's cash, 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 cash. And so for a lot of things, whether it's school or a lot of things are not paid monthly. A lot of things are paid like by trimester, like for school and things like that. So you have to have money like ready to go right now. And for any move, you have some cost up front, like furniture or the internet right now to set up things in your house and all of that. So all of that has to be cash in hand. So yeah, so savings definitely, and with our online businesses. So my husband is in financial education, and I have an online coaching business. So those things are is always something that I tell people, like get started now. So don't count on what you're going to do there to sustain your lifestyle. Sure, we can always add things, like I said, investing there and starting a lot of things there, but at least having something now that even if everything that you try over there fails, you still have money coming in.
Okay, now you just listed some big ticket items. Do you have a number of like, okay,
Ooh,
we hit this number, we getting up out of here?
at least 30K.
Okay. Now
Yeah.
30K is not that's not I thought you was gonna say something crazy. I thought you were gonna be like, listen, me and the hubs, we have half a million in the bank, and then we're just like, you know what? We're gonna leave the US. 30K is manageable. Somebody is watching this right now and they're like, I could hit that number.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that in 6 months, depending on how much money you make. But like that's it, and you're out. Definitely not a million. You don't need that much. I mean, and again, it depends on if you want to leave off your savings, then definitely.
Mm.
But that's not what we're planning to do. So that's just money to put up front for all the different purchases that you need to make once you get there. But counting on
Money coming.
money that is going to the businesses to sustain your daily life. Yeah. Um, I think if you're just counting on savings, it just puts a deadline to your move because the savings are going to run out at some point, and then what?
You're
Right?
just gonna have to. I was. I have to remind myself that my channel is not a place where I could. Anyway, I was gonna say something inappropriate. D from Brown Girls Invest says this is a better way. Americans rely on credit or finance things that they can't actually afford at the time. True,
Absolutely,
very true.
absolutely.
Yvonne
Yeah, I mean,
says the U.S. is an overpriced ghetto. It's hood over here.
yeah,
Mhm.
and it's the whole concept of credit score to me. I mean, for every foreigner, is like it doesn't make sense because it's like I had horrible credit score when I came in because I had no history.
Mm.
It's like, okay, so I'm being punished because I don't have any kind of credit. So it's like, okay, so now I have to go and get in debt so that I can prove that I can reimburse. And it's like, okay,
Well, and then
but
it's also like, not to get in my Black Panther Hotep bag, but
Mhm.
your credit score should not determine the whether or not you have a place to live, right? There's
Right.
a credit score should not determine like whether or not you're able to like open a bank account, have a place for.
Exactly.
There's certain things.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
The system
Absolutely.
is set up crazy. Um,
Hmm.
See, this is what I was gonna say. If you gotta shake a look, show a little foot, open it up. Sometimes when I get on the live and I have like my shoulders out, I'm like, y'all gonna have to pay me for this. Show my little. Yvonne asked, "How old are your children? How much is school in Cameroon?"
Oh, very good question. So my kids are the boys are 10 and 9 and the girls are 7. So 4 kids. School. So now the advantage of Cameroon is because it's a bilingual country, you would have English schools and French schools. So English language or French language schools. So they're a lot more affordable. The one that I look at, I did a whole budget. Um, what was the number again? I think it was, so it wasn't free, of course, because it was the equivalent of a private school, but it was a Cameroonian private school. It wasn't an international school. The international schools, like the one that I visited in Cote d'Ivoire, I think it's $20,000 a year per kid.
That's a lot of money.
Yes. So 99% of the kids there, their parents work at like the UN or things like that. So they're not the ones paying for the tuition. Um, but yeah, that would be the cost for like an international school. I mean, yeah, an international school like American school, whether it's Cameroon or Cote d'Ivoire. Cameroon probably a little less because there's more competition with other English speaking schools. But with my in my budget for Cameroon, I don't remember how much it was, but it wasn't that bad. I think it would be like, I don't know, maybe like $100 a month or something like that per kid. It really wasn't that bad. Yeah. Yeah. Again, because there's a lot more competition. In For Cote d'Ivoire, with a school that I've looked at, it would be about 1,200 for all 4 kids per month.
Okay.
It's an English speaking private school. It's not the international American school, but it's still English speaking, and it would be about 1,200 per month per kid. And that's the main item that is like busting my budget. Is like everything is cheaper or more affordable, I should say. But but that's cool thing is just like, man. I mean,
So, do you feel like, and this is not a me question, this is a question for the people in my comment section. They haven't asked it yet, but I'm gonna ask it. So, do you
okay.
feel like because there's this stigma that
Mhm.
I would say Westerners have about Africa, that sending your children to a school in Africa, even if it is an English speaking school, that they are
Mhm.
somehow A, not receiving the same standard of education, that will
Hmm.
allow them to have access to opportunities in the West?
Hmm. It really depends on the school.
Mm,
Um, you have to remember that some schools, I mean, I'm sure even here in the US, I would say some schools or some teachers still believe in corporal punishment. So it depends on where you put your kids in. Like even here, okay, it's not just an Africa thing. It's everywhere. So so yeah. So for
beat them
every
kids.
hey, right.
I'm just kidding.
Um,
Just
so
kidding.
you have to be aware of where you go. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that because more than likely you won't, even if you stay there for many, many years and your kids are still small, after high school, where would they go? More than likely they will either come to the US for school or in Europe or anywhere else. But you need to be in a school that would have, how do you say that, equivalence, where they can transfer their credit basically. So that's why you need to be in a school that is like, what's the word, ESL issues. A school that is
Accredited?
accredited. Yes, yes, yes,
Mm.
yes. So not just like the school at the corner, just because it's right there and it's available, but okay, is it accredited by this institute of schools in Africa or American schools here or whatever, so you can easily transfer if you need to do that. Yeah.
Mm. Okay. So it sounds like you're doing a lot of research and you're actually, did I hear you correct that you visited this school? So you are doing scouting trips, you're seeing schools.
Yes, yes, yes. So that's the only school that I actually visited. I wanted to see how it was like on the inside and talk to the staff, talk to the director and all of that. So it was, I mean, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is the best school ever. No, it was okay. It was good.
Twenty
But
twenty thousand dollars per
I
child.
tell you,
It better be amazing.
per kid. And I even considered for a brief moment, I considered getting a teaching certification so I could like teach at that school and so that my kids can go like for I think either free or like a portion of the price, something like that. And I'm like, man, I'm tired of school. I don't want to go back to school. I'm like, no, I don't know about this. I don't know. And I've taught college. I don't know if I can teach kids. I don't think I have the patience. It's
You're
too
like,
much.
I have to deal with these kids at home.
Mm-mm. Yeah,
I don't want to deal with them.
yeah. No, and I can't scream at other people's kids, so no.
Well, you might be able to beat them depending on depending on which school you choose.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's yeah.
Eileen,
Just gonna
since
have to fight it.
Western education isn't all that it cracks up to be, because as we're finding out, and it's
That's
getting
true.
worse. It's getting
That's
worse.
true.
Hi, TV. Hey.
Right?
U.S.
Yeah, and what
public.
I tell everybody, yeah, that's right. That's very
Mhm.
true. What you said. What I'm telling everybody, because I taught here, and so I went to a French school, and what we studied in high school is what kids here in the US study in college, like
Mm-mm.
freshman year and all of that. And I was like, wow, interesting. And so something that I always recommend to people, and I wrote a book about that, by the way, it's in Amazon, about how to
And
go to
we will
college.
include the link to the book in the description of this video because I don't have it.
Yes, 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 yes. So my husband kind of forced me to write the book because I didn't want to write this book. It's on how to go to college debt free, because my brothers and I came here and went like zero debt, student loan debt. And I was like, man, everybody knows about that. He's like, no, people don't know about that. They need to know. So I wrote the book. And what I always recommend people to do is not to go to college in the US for undergrad, because undergrad in the US is not that good. But to do it abroad and then come back for a master's degree, I'm giving you all the information about the book. Come back for a master's degree if you want and get an assistantship so you don't get any student loans. They pay you to go to school. And if you want to get a PhD, same thing. Because American schools are good at the research level because there's a lot of funding, but not necessarily at the undergraduate level. So you don't need to spend 4 or 5 years undergrad here in the US. Go do that abroad for free and then come back if you
For
wanna.
less time, by the way. Undergrad internationally is only like 3 years.
Yeah, now it's 3 years. Yes, yes, now it's 3 years. That's right.
I wish I could go back in time. Ugh, I really do. Well, my student loans are with the Lord, so I really don't have any claim to them. Um, Khadija asked, would you consider hiring a private teacher for homeschooling, or would you homeschool yourself?
That's a great question. So, homeschooling is actually legal in Cote d'Ivoire, as far as I know. So, I've considered it, and then I'm like, I don't know if I'm patient with my own kids. So, I like the concept of homeschooling, but the idea of being 24/7 with my children, I love them and all that, but I think it's going to be a little too much. So, I like the idea. However, I would rather make more money so that they can go to school instead of homeschooling. So that's a perfect motivation for me to be like, hey, these $1,200 I need to make it because yeah, they have to be in school.
Okay, so I don't have no kids, but I feel like the consensus in America is my babies? My babies need to be with me all the time. Is it not like that across the continent? Because I remember seeing a video. I think this was when you were talking with your husband, and you were saying that parents have more freedom because they can afford to hire help, or they can afford
Hmm.
their kids away. So
Hmm.
they have social lives, they can go out to eat, whatever, and they don't have to really worry about where their children are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I'm not gonna say most, but it's very normal or very, common to send your kid to boarding school across the continent. Small kids, like my kids, would be in boarding school.
At 7?
My husband went to boarding school, and when he suggested for my kids, I'm like, no, my babies. But yeah, yeah, boarding school, like most, I don't know if I'm going to say most, but it's very, very common. Yeah, to send. I mean, my parents went to boarding school, probably for different reasons, like because of distance, where the school was, and things like that. But it's still very, very common to send your children to boarding school. A lot of African immigrants who are here and who have kids here, and they see like how their children are growing up here, and they're like, you know what? Mm-mm. And they're sending their kids back home so they can be in
Really?
boarding school. Yes, because they will have like there's no bullying. Like there's not that there's no bullying, but there's more structure. There's more structure. It's not like the kids can come to school with all kinds of weapons and all kinds of, so there's more structure and discipline. So a lot of them would send their kids to boarding school.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not one of them. It's like
Well,
I love my kids and all of that, but I'm not like, I feel like that's why homeschooling to me, I like the concept, but I don't really want them to be always with you. I want them to go and interact with other kids. And sure, when you talk about homeschooling, a lot of parents will say, yeah, but we do activities and we go to museums. And sure, but I don't want to be the one driving. I don't want to be like the one who has to organize everything. You know what I mean? Even if, like, okay, you can have a driver and you can, but I don't want to have to decide on curriculum, on this and that.
hmm,
I
you have other things to do.
have other things to do.
You have other things to do. But speaking to like the kind of freedoms that you could have when you move to, we'll say, Cameroon, I feel like
Hmm.
I feel like you're gonna move to Cameroon. I'm just
Really?
I feel like it's gonna happen. But but speaking to those kind of liberties, like what are some of the things you're excited about doing once you make your move?
First thing is going to be hire somebody to cook. I know how to cook, but I do not enjoy cooking. I'm good at it, but
I'm not.
I don't like it. Yeah. Obviously somebody to clean, driver, maybe. I like to drive, so I'm okay with that. but definitely some help with around the house, cooking, cleaning. That would be top, top, top. Also, something that is also quite affordable is tutoring services. So, in addition to sending the kids to school, you can also have private tutors that can come to your house and all of that. My eldest is on the spectrum. So here, for example, he has a paraprofessional with him at school, and so hiring somebody who could do that for him as well in those schools or at home as well, that's something that is quite affordable. Yeah.
Oh. Now, see, that's interesting. You say you have a child on the spectrum. Is there, do they have the same resources in those
Great,
schools?
great question. So that was one of my first questions that I asked. So depending on the school, so the American schools will have those like the IEPs and all of that. So that's why again, it might you have to look at how these things compare with what you used to, and if they have the IEPs and the same process as well. And they do, like in the American schools, they do that. They do have that. In the other private schools, you have to ask, and if they don't necessarily provide a paraprofessional, for example, you could hire a tutor or a paraprofessional that would come on your behalf and be with your child in the school. Yeah, you can do.
Mm.
So you have that flexibility that you probably wouldn't have here in the US.
Yes, I see that there are a lot of people in the room. Please like the video. If you have a
Yeah.
question for Dr. Linda, drop down in the comment section, put a Q in front of your question. We are talking about her moving her family back to Africa. She's deciding between Cameroon and Cote d'Ivoire. So we talked a little bit about planning and financial planning, um,
Mhm.
but we haven't talked about your Freedom Business Academy. Could you
Yeah.
explain to people a little bit what that is?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I started my business back in 2016. So right before I officially launched this kind of version of what I do in 2016. It went through different versions of it, right? And so I've done online coaching for many, many years. And I wanted to have a place where fellow black women we could get together with the same object. We're all like in that moving abroad mindset. Some of us already moved, some of us are still here, and finding the how do you start an online business that will fund that move and sustain your life abroad. That's my, like, everybody has their thing. Some people is about investment, some people is about saving, some people is about housing around the world. My thing is online business. That's my thing. And so I love to talk about business. I love to talk, like, to me, the more flexibility you can have, the better it is. So nothing about product, nothing about having inventory or anything like that. The leanest, simplest way to do it, and that can bring you the most money. And so that's why we talk about inside of the membership. So it's a monthly membership. You can pay for the year or monthly. And we talk about that. So we talk about different ways you can build your business. And everybody's version is different. Some people like to do one-on-ones. I personally don't like to do one-on-ones. And so you can build your business, again, freedom, the way that fits you and your lifestyle. And so, yeah, that's the Freedom Business Academy. I have different ways that I work with clients, but that's one of the main ways that I do.
I'm laughing because you said you don't like to do one-on-ones. I put a link to join the Freedom Business Academy in the comments. It'll also be in the description of this video. Um, so could you walk us through some of the key components of the academy? So what can people expect to kind of gain from joining the membership?
Absolutely. So every month we have a coaching session. So we usually have a topic for the month. So in March, so in February we talked about like your specific offers that you can put together and all that for the year. In March we're going to talk about having a lead magnet, so a freebie so that you can grow your list and all of that. And so every month we have a coaching call, and every Friday we have our co-working sessions. And that's what my favorite thing about the membership is, that from 8 a.m. until sometimes we stay till 4 p.m. co-working like the
The
whole
whole
day.
day.
I know. It's like you can come and go as you want, but it's like that's our day. If you have something to do and you're like, man, I've been procrastinating or anything like that, Friday is the day when you bring it to the table and everybody's working on their own thing. And so we have that. We share resources. We share behind the scenes. Like today, for example, somebody asked me, "Well, how do I promote?" Like she put together a an offer, and now she's like, "Well, okay, how do I promote it on social media?" Boom! I just recorded a video and I uploaded it to the membership. Like behind the scenes resources. I share the things that I'm doing in my business as well. That way they see how I do it.
Mm.
And yeah, so it's a fun place to be.
Yeah, and I think that's beneficial. Brown Girls Invest too says help the people because people are
Mm.
financially unprepared. This is true. I
Oh
mean,
my
but
goodness.
even in this conversation, you mentioned several things that I want people to take away from the chat.
Mhm.
So, knowing what your number is, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then because it may not be this huge like, listen, I need to have $1 million in the bank, right? It
Hmm.
could just be 30K. And if that's your goal, like, okay, 30K and I can live for a year, 2 years, it depends. Like, look at your monthly expenses, how much it's going to cost you to move to a new place, and really look at your budget. Financially prepare for
Yeah.
that. Even if you start an online business and you're thinking, in the US, for an online business to be profitable, you probably need to be making like on the low end $10,000 a month. But on
Hmm.
but in another country, if you are making like 2K a month from your online business, even if you're making like $500, listen, that
Yeah.
could be your rent for a month, right?
Absolutely.
Every month your
Absolutely.
online business is paying you $500 and you use that to pay your rent.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
People are like
Absolutely. I that's something that I talked about. I think it was today or something like that on a video. I'm like, you have to know what your budget is. Know your budget, and then you will know. Okay, how much do I need to make to cover that? Our budget for Cote d'Ivoire looks very different from our budget for Cameroon. For Cameroon, we probably cut our current budget in three, right? In Cote d'Ivoire, it would be a little less. It would still be less than here, but you know, but it's still a big cut. So based on those numbers, I'm like, okay, so this is how much we need to bring to the table every single month. Okay, how am I gonna make that money? Okay, I have this offer, this offer, this offer. Okay, which is the best offer? Which is the one that is going to allow me to make the most with the least effort?
yeah, and
For
really think.
example, the one that's easier to do, and then you just decide. Yeah, you start with the goal and then you go like big goal and then you go into okay, what is the offer, and then based on the offer, okay, what kind of content do I put out there to attract my people? That's it. That's all
Yeah.
you have to do.
Khadija has another great question. With moving to Africa, what are some of the ways you plan to adapt your business model to the time zone
Oh,
change?
that's a good question. I like it. Well, the good thing is that because we're going to be ahead with time, so I can do a lot of my personal things while people in the US are still sleeping. And I can do a lot of my things already. And then if it's like a live call, for example, and then it would be evening here, and they would be, I mean, it would be like midday over there, and it would be morning here.
Mhm.
But I've worked in the past, I've worked with clients like in Australia and the UK and all of that. So we've always kind of adjusted whenever we had like coaching calls to whatever time worked best for everybody. But yeah, it's an advantage to be ahead in the time zone because you can get your things done, and then you go and jump on coaching calls and things like that.
Mm. So we haven't talked about any sort of logistical questions. In terms of like visa. So obviously your husband's Cameroonian. I'm assuming, I don't know, that if you guys were to choose Cameroon, you guys would be on under his residency or whatever it is, like his birthright citizenship, bringing the family. But on a place like Cote d'Ivoire, do you guys have to actually apply for a visa? Is that
Mhm.
yes? And how?
Yeah.
What's that process going to be like?
So for Cote d'Ivoire, you apply even if it's just a tourism visa. You apply for a visa as Americans. As you're a citizen, you apply for a visa. So you apply for a tourist visa, and then you can renew it, and then ask for residency. So
Mm.
depending on which like how you're coming in, like if you are a retiree or if you're coming for a job, or like depending on your purpose of being there. For us, it would be business. So even if you were to start investing right away, then that will be one way to have residency. But just with an online business, that would be enough for us to be able to renew our visa into residency visa. Yeah.
Could you speak to some of the requirements for if you wanted to enter Cote d'Ivoire on a business visa?
We are not entering in a business with a business visa. We're entering with a tourism visa that you can
Oh,
then like, you can renew it once, I believe, as a tourist visa, and then ask for residency. So uh, the funny thing, I don't know if it's funny, but interesting thing is that a lot of the information you really have to dig, because a lot of it is catered to French citizens. So a lot of it, first of all, is in French, but it's also because most people who go visit Cote d'Ivoire are French. So very few are Americans. So a lot of the information that I had to gather was from Americans who are in Cote d'Ivoire to get accurate information about what they do, or like asking directly to people who are already there. Because a lot of things online is not catered to our case or specific case. Yeah, but that's how you would have to be to do it. Come in with a tourist visa first, and then renew it, and then ask for residency.
mm. Do you feel like it's easier or more difficult to apply for the visa with your US passport versus your Congolese passport?
I don't have my Congolese passport anymore.
Oh,
It's that's one of the things that many, I don't know if a lot of countries around the world do that, but in the Congo you do not have dual citizenship. They don't allow it. So you have to renounce your Congolese citizenship
wow.
when you become a US citizen. And the funny thing is that who's going to say no? I mean, I'm being a little sarcastic, but who's going to say no? Like I have one of the least powerful, I have one of the weakest passports in the world.
The
And now
opinions expressed on
I,
this channel are not reflected of the Awkward Black Nomad brand. Um,
yes,
I am just providing a platform for my
that's
guest to
right.
share her perspective. It is
These
not
are my own thoughts.
exactly, it is not the perspective of the host. Please continue. Please continue. I feel like I need
Yes,
a sign up at the top that says,
yes. In bold and all of that. No, it's because it's like, it's in a way I kind of understand, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that if I could, it would be a lot easier for me to go to the Congo and back. I would have more attachment to the Congo if I still had my Congolese passport.
mm,
The fact that I don't have it anymore has created more detachment. I've never been there. I mean, I went there when I was a baby, so it doesn't really count. But it has created more detachment because I don't have that ability to just go, come and go, and because technically I'm not Congolese anymore. I mean, those are my roots. I am, but at the same time, I'm not. On paper, I'm not. So I had to pick, and I picked the U.S. passport. I picked the U.S. citizenship, and for a lot of countries on the continent, that's the case. I think Cameroon as well. And so it's a little hard to, I don't remember what your question was, but
it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's interesting. The only reason I asked that question is because I've heard that it's difficult for Africans to travel within Africa.
absolutely.
So I was asking just to see, is it
Yeah.
easier if you had a US passport to get around?
Oh, okay. Yes, yes. Yeah, it's a
Mm.
lot easier. So on the continent, there are some zones, just like the Eurozone, like the Schengen and all that. So there's the Central African countries, there's the Western African countries, and they have treaties. So that, for example, ECOWAS in the Western African countries, so Senegal, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, Benin, you don't need a visa to travel within those countries if you have a passport from one of these countries, right? Um, for the Congo, back then when I just came to the US and I was like, oh, let me travel around the world. There were there was a list of maybe like 10, if that, countries I could go around the world visa free.
Okay.
Even to go to Mexico, I needed to ask for a visa until I had stayed for a certain number of years as a student. Now I had a special student status, and then I could go to Mexico and Canada on a student. Did I? I think I still needed the. I needed the visa for Mexico, but I didn't need a visa to come back, and so that's why I didn't travel that much as a student. It's yeah, it was a little complicated.
Okay. So I'm guessing you must have gotten your like US citizenship after college.
Yeah, through marriage,
Through
my
oh
husband.
right, because your husband was born in the US.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it was through him.
Okay. See, so when I tell people on my channel to be strategic with who you partner with, this is what we talking about. Okay, y'all, a lot of y'all need to start thinking like immigrants, okay? You have a
You
country
know,
Ian, go and find yourself a husband out there or a wife, whoever watching, just start.
one thing that I always joke about is that uh, the American government really believes in love because it's one of the fastest paths to citizenship through marriage. Yeah, like you're married to an American citizen, that's probably the fastest path to citizenship.
You know,
Or
I
or
talk
maybe if you like invest millions.
but in Texas, a lot of people in Texas, a lot of people will say like, "Oh, you're getting married to somebody who's not an American citizen." Well, they want your citizenship. They
Hmm.
all want your citizenship. Like it's something we have to hang on to. Meanwhile, I'm trying to get
Yeah, be strategic. Yeah, get like
I
a European something. That
even
would be
way
nice.
back when this was like a few months ago, I was talking to this Cameroonian guy, and
Hmm.
he was an American citizen. But I was like, listen, I'm trying to get that Cameroon citizenship. Like forget the U.S. You could stay here. You can
Yeah, so
stay here. I'm leaving.
uh, if you want to get an African, I would say probably pick one of the Western West African countries. That way you'll be able to. So pick a Nigerian, for example. That way you'll be
Oh,
able
I
to
could do
have
that.
all. There you go. Easy peasy.
They have a lot of them in Texas. I could do that.
There you go.
Okay. So
Right.
what? So you want to stay? I hope you got whoever's watching. You guys write this down. So if you want to get to Africa, stay in the West. That's where you want your
The
day
West is
school
good.
to come from.
Yeah, I know Central. I don't know. I'm sorry, but not to bash on my Congo, but it's not. I don't know. The southern part, I believe. Yeah, the eastern part, yes, they have Tanzania, Kenya. They do have a treaty there, so that could be a good pick as well. Southern countries, probably. I'm just not familiar, but for the West, yes, definitely.
Anyone watching, drop down in the comments if you have any information about this. If you can provide any insight. Amina says I tried that in college, but my parents yoked me up before that check cleared. They will do that. They will do.
Western African. That's right. Take notes. Yes, absolutely.
So ridiculous. Yes, ECOWA's passports are good.
ECOWAS. That's right. ECOWAS passports are good. I've used mine and it works. Yep, absolutely. And
Nice.
now that Sierra Leone, Ghana, Benin are ECOWAS countries who allow you to have citizenship by descent, that's worth exploring. Definitely worth exploring.
Interesting. Okay. Um, I mean, we've covered a lot. We've covered a lot. I think we're winding down, guys. If anyone watching right now, if you have any questions for Dr. Linda, drop down in the comment section. Um,
Mhm.
I don't think we mentioned this. So your children are still very young. Have you traveled with them internationally?
No. Internationally with the boys. We went to Europe with the boys, and I had my Congolese passport, and yeah, I was stressed out,
Really?
stressed out the whole time. But yeah, we took them to Europe. The girls, have the girls been to Canada? I don't know, but the boys have been to Europe, to Canada as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
So they've done, because I mean, the flight to Europe is only like 6, 7 hours. So they've done a good, that's a big journey.
yeah. I mean, they're good travelers too. Like we fly a lot here domestically, and they're pretty good. They're pretty good. Yeah.
Have they, at least maybe not the 7-year-old, but have the boys, uh have you guys talked to them about moving, and do they have opinions? Or like what
No,
they
my one of my daughters, she's like, I found you on YouTube. Are we moving?
what? So they didn't know. They didn't even
But
know.
we haven't really talked about it because we need to be like, once we have the destination, like in our heads, we have the destination. So once we're sure for the destination and the date, then we'll announce it to them. But they will be excited about it. They'll like sometimes drop a few things like here and there, like, hey, what do you think if we were to move? Or and they've always wanted to go to Cameroon. We were supposed to go to Cameroon, but then we didn't get a visa. That was a long story. But yeah, they're excited because they know where their grandparents are from, where their parents are from, and like Cameroon, Congo, Morocco, and all of that. And we look at the map and, hey, would you like to know more about this? And so they're excited about the idea of even just traveling, but even moving. Like I kind of dropped tip like hints here and there, and they're pretty excited about the idea. So I think they'll be okay.
That's good. I'm reading y'all comments. This y'all are a mess. Amina, don't tell your business.
I really knew it.
Don't tell all your business. Please.
Oh
Do
man.
you so we've talked a lot about the good stuff. We've talked a little bit about like maybe the infrastructure concerns, but
Mhm,
any
mhm.
are there any like big concerns that are in the back of your mind that you're worried about when you think about
I,
making the transition?
I think my main concern is political stability. Is political stability. Cote d'Ivoire is pretty stable. They have elections coming up in October, and I think everybody's like, you know, hoping it's gonna go well and all of that. So we're observing, seeing how things will go. Cameroon is Jazz. I think if Jazz is still on here, she will understand. Cameroon has had the same president for the past since 1986. So it's like situation is the same like this. However, there's conflict in the southwest part of the country. So I would say it's pretty stable if you stay in Yaoundé or Douala, so the capital, the main cities. So you should be okay. Um, so that would be my main concern in terms of political stability. In terms of safety, it's not because again, there's a sense of other people. Not that I'm counting on that, but I know that other people are also watching my children, like they're caring for my children. It literally takes a village to raise a kid. So I know that okay, I can count on my neighbor to okay make sure that my kids are okay when they're playing in the street, or definitely not worrying about school shootings or things like that, or somebody just being mad that I cut him off in the street and then pulling out something. So it's not, I feel pretty safe in those terms. Yeah. But yeah, for me, it's more like political stability more than anything.
Mhm. Yeah. Would for anyone watching this who may be considering moving abroad with children, not specifically to Africa, but just abroad in general, what advice would you give them?
Hmm. I would say look at your children sense of like based on their age, look sense of if they can adapt to a new environment. You know your kids best. Some people say do it when they're young. Some people say just wait when they're teenagers. For me, I feel like we're in the right age because yes, they do have friends, but they don't have super strong attachment to those friends. So these are not lifelong friends yet because they just spent like a few years with them, right? They're not, and also they are not at an age where they have major things that they would miss from American high school experience. So like prom or getting their first car, getting their driver's license. They're still young, so it's not like I'm going to take them away from that. Um, and
What would
so
be
I would
the
say,
African equivalent? Do y'all have what would be the African equivalent to prom? Do y'all do that?
We actually do.
Yeah.
We did that in high school. Yeah. I don't think it's such a big deal
Mm.
as much as a big deal. We
That's because
had
the 80s and all those teen movies about that's why it's a big deal. It's a big deal because
yeah
of the 80s.
with the dresses and all that.
Yeah.
We did have proms in high school. I remember, like I think it was the equivalent of so it was high school. So the last 3 years, yeah, because the system is different. Like our grades system is different. But yeah, I think the last 3 years, we had prompts. Yeah, so yeah, they could still experience that. Yeah. Also, the fact that you don't drive at 16, you drive at 18. So
Probably for the best.
it might be. It might be. Yeah. But so yeah, so think about your children. I would say always be at the same, like if you're going with a partner, always be on the same, page. Like it's not you pushing, it's not him or her pushing. It's like, okay, we have to agree on this thing before anything. And so sometimes I'm like, if I were single with no kids, I wouldn't even be here having this conversation. I would be somewhere on the beach, because I'm a little bit of a YOLO person, but not anymore because of the kids and the husband. But otherwise, I would have been out. I think that if you don't have children or a spouse, just go. What's the worst that can happen? Like you just come back to your family and you're good. Those are the times when you need to experience life. You need to live life, right? And if you have children and a spouse or a partner, be on the same page and make a plan. Put a plan together. It's really, really important. It's not just like, oh, I'm tired of everything, or I'm scared of this, or politics here. And, I understand that there's anxiety. I understand that there's stress. I understand that there are some realities, there's some rational and irrational fears as well. Put a plan together. The more prepared, the better it's going to be for you. So you don't need a plan for everything because there are things that are going to, that's the thing. It's like there are so many things that will happen and that will go wrong. And I'm okay with that because that's just life. There, just like when I came here in the US, there are things that I didn't know. I didn't know that I had to reapply for my scholarship. And then the second semester, I'm like, oh, where's my scholarship? They gave me money. I thought I was good. And they're like, no, you have to reapply every semester. You adapt. There are things you don't know. And you'll learn right there on the spot.
Okay. That's fair. That's very fair. Thank you for coming on my channel. Thank you for being
Thank you.
very open.
Yay. Thank you for having me. That was fun.
Of course. Of course. Anytime you want to come back and speak to the people, you let me know. Thank you all for watching. If you have any follow-up questions for Dr. Linda, you can drop them in the comment section. Like the video. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the
What you waiting
channel.
for?
What are
What
we
you waiting
doing?
for?
Subscribe to Dr. Linda's channel
Yes, please.
in the description of this video. What else is there? I've been kind of ghost this month, but I'm coming back with a vengeance. I'm cooking something up. You guys stay tuned. I'm not ready to tell anybody what it is yet because I'm not finished. But good things are coming on the channel. We are growing. We're growing. Yes. And
Okay.
that's all I got. Y'all stay black. Thanks for watching the video. Peace out. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.